Hello and welcome to this mini-series. Today we are going to discuss part of the origins of the myth of Muhammad. Notice the verse on screen. As previously discussed, Muhammad meant Muhammad, and it was a title for Jesus, just like the verse that talks about Ahmad. In fact, the verse about Ahmad is the right place where to begin. Notice that the verse ends with a critique from those who disbelieve, accusing Jesus of being affected by magic. That makes sense, because according to the Quran, Jesus performed miracles. The reaction to witnessing something impossible would be, either concluding that the powers came from God, or that Jesus was performing magic. Jesus could not be accused of performing magic because of his speech, but by actions people could not comprehend. Miracles, for the most part. Now we understand the verses in the Quran which we interpret as people accusing Muhammad of being affected by magic. That makes no sense, because the Quran repeats endlessly that Muhammad had no miracles at all, and we also know that the Muhammad of the standard Islamic narrative did not exist, but rather he was a composite of characters. For anyone who thinks that the splitting of the moon is a miracle, we've debunked that one on a previous video, and we will soon explain what that verse used to say before it was corrupted. Definitely stay tuned for that one. So, now that we understand that the claim of people affected by magic relates to miracles, they must relate to different individuals. The verses on the screen make such claims, including the very long verse listing Jesus' miracles, ending in the accusation that the miracles were only magic. You will find the explanation of what happened quite hilarious. Before shoehorning Muhammad in as many verses as possible, including Surah 17 verse 1 which we have covered before and it's a story about Moses, the stories told were primarily about the character Jesus. Those stories included both miracles and accusations from disbelievers. When the myth of Muhammad was being created, every verse where they could add him in, they did. The hilarious part is that they split the stories of Jesus in two, with Jesus retaining the miracles, and the invented Muhammad was stuck with the accusations. The verses on the screen show this effect perfectly. These verses list a number of accusations, and they end with the wrongdoers making the grand claim that the preacher telling the stories follows a man affected by magic. As discussed, that's a reference to the miracles of Jesus. However, the first verse exposes the lie. Notice how the first verse accuses Muhammad, according to the Islamic narrative of course, of writing down in his book ancient legends which were dictated to him morning and afternoon. But the narrative built around Muhammad was that he was unlettered, and he never wrote a book, and his book was compiled after his death. You see the problem. Why would he be accused of writing stories when the narrative explains it was all about oral tradition? That's because the Judeo-Nazarenes claimed that Jesus had received a book, just like Moses had done. This verse spells it out. That argument against Jesus then was stuck with Muhammad, just like all the stories accusing Jesus of performing magic, which then inspired the countless stories about Muhammad speaking with the stones and mountains, and everything else derived from these accusations, even though they were not meant to be about him at all. In short, the stories about Jesus got split in two. Jesus retained the good ones, and the bad ones went to Muhammad. Was it a coincidence? Or perhaps it was divine intervention? Or was it a deliberate act from the writers who wrote down stories under duress, and left us clues to figure out the mess? I am sure the answer will be revealed, in this life or next. The next videos will be very spicy. See you there.